there are many women who I bring on, and I always like to touch on, what were the challenges, in your, on your path to success, because we try to keep it real here. We understand that, it wasn't all, champagne and roses and stuff throughout. So, and particularly, I want you to share with us some of your challenges. Because, I really want people to get to know you. What were your challenges, particularly as a woman of color? I'm particularly interested in that in this coaching space.
Yeah. Well, I'll say throughout my career, I mean, as I was, progressing and being promoted, first of all, there were people who didn't, whether they expressly stated it or whether it was sort of in the innuendo, didn't think I was necessarily deserving of being in a position, whether it was, and people aren't always so explicit, but you can kind of read the room, right? So whether that was about my age or being either one of the only or the only person of color, or only Black woman, right, in the environment. So there was having to sort of this sense of, I've got to, yes, I've earned this position, but now I've got to fight and earn for the buy-in. And sometimes having, my authority challenged in ways that I didn't see people challenging other people, or maybe our white counterparts. So there was that. There were times of really feeling isolated in the role, because as you're moving up, first of all, your peer group is getting smaller, and you don't always feel safe. You don't always feel safe to say, either I'm struggling with something or I'm facing a particular challenge, when you're not sure if people are going to really be receptive to that and be able to support you. So there can, for myself, there were times of feeling isolated and really struggling to figure out, where is my safe space to talk through what my experience is, and to really be able to grow. I think when we're not able to be vulnerable, it's much harder to then be able to grow. And so that was definitely a challenge. I think another challenge is, there's always, unfortunately, this sort of stereotype of the angry Black woman. And this comes up so much when I'm both coaching, but even in the therapeutic space, but where I think what it does is it takes away a Black woman or a woman of color's right to feel the full range of her emotions, because you've got to, contain it. You can't present as being angry or passionate, but sometimes you do need to be angry, and it's okay to be angry, right? And so I think that even having, my own feelings or seeing other women where their feelings are almost weaponized against them, if you present in a way that could be perceived a certain way, then it automatically diminishes your message. But in the same vein, then you're not getting to really be your authentic self, or you don't feel like you can be your authentic self. And so that challenge, I think, we want to be able to show up. I know I wanted to be able to show up and be who I was. And if something was, I didn't agree with something, to be able to say that and speak on that, and not have this additional layer of like, oh, but I don't want to, appear to be. And I think we carry that. And I think that can really take a tremendous toll.
So in addition to, and I was purposeful in asking you about your experience as a woman of color, because as women in general, whether it's in the corporate space or in nonprofits, executive positions or any just positions of leadership, as women in general, we deal with the, and I can say it because it's on the internet, she's such a bitch, when we have to make decisions perhaps that are not popular, or we're just leading. And because we're being assertive, not aggressive, assertive, and there is a difference, right? All of a sudden we get that. But now insert the fact that, you're a woman of color, then you have the, she's an angry Black woman, thing that we've got to deal with as well. Right. So it's a double layer. So, and it's something that in certain contexts, I've had to deal with that as well. You know, it's, you know, if you're too nice, you get walked over. And as soon as you decide to be, you know, decisive and you're like, okay, this, you were in a position to lead, you've heard, get all the buy-in that you can, but then ultimately the decision is yours. And then you're saying, oh my God, she's being such a bitch, you know, like
Right.
all that. You're like, wait a minute, you know, where did that come from?
Right. And
You know,
I think
you didn't tell Bill that. You didn't call Bill that when he was in my job, you know?
And if anything, you know, he was applauded and for being decisive and direct, and I think that having to, you know, people are going to think whatever they think,
Right.
but I think having to confront it within ourselves and say, okay, I am struggling with this, and this is something that I want to break through, and it's going to, you know, it's going to be what it's going to be, but I don't want to hold myself back in this way. I don't want to be afraid to, you know, to be direct, to be decisive because, oh, well, it might appear X, Y, and Z. And so breaking through that and getting to a point where, yeah, it is what it is. I'm going to be assertive. I'm going to be direct. You know, I'm going to let you know when something is an issue or what my perspective is, and we're going to have to deal. We're going to have to go from there. But making that shift, even for myself, was so incredibly empowering. So empowering.